Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan, I'm your host. And guys, today we are going to be talking about the methods of construction delivery, right? The delivery methods for your projects, what that looks like, what methods you can use, and how to ultimately contract them. Now, all that being said, I do have to say this in that I'm not a lawyer, but I've done this often enough and I'm approaching $1 billion of construction value here this year. In that, I've done this quite a bit, gone through the gamut here, and seen all these methods really put into play. So you can kind of pick and choose the methods of project delivery that you'd like to go after, the contract vehicles, and we'll kind of talk about some pros and cons, but we'll get into it more this month here on the Construction Corner as to what each delivery method brings, who kind of benefits from it, and why you would choose to maybe go that way. So the four delivery methods that we're going to talk about are going to be design, bid, build, which is the traditional architect engineer kind of method, right? Where the design team designs the project with the owner and then it gets put out to bid. That gets bid on by all the contractors. All the bids get assimilated. The general contractor then subdivides that into scope definitions and all that kind of good stuff. Puts a bid and price together for the owner, and then they end up signing that package from the general contractor based on the designs provided by the design team, and then we go forth and build the building. Next is going to be design build, which is really an integrated delivery method. Typically, this method, you can split it up a few different ways, but it basically the owner has one, maybe two contracts, one with the general contractor, one with the architect. Potentially, it might get split that way. And maybe the owner has a couple with like the structural engineer and civil engineer, that might all be fed through the architect. And then typically the mechanical, electrical, plumbing trades then get um, basically built. The design portion of those systems get built into the contractor's contract, and effectively they're able to execute both design and construction somewhat simultaneously. Like there's still going to be some design phase in there for the project to basically assemble all the team, get everything put together, and then move forward with the project. So design build, it's becoming bigger and bigger. Obviously, we'll have Matt on to talk about it and go through it with him. Then there is I'm going to call this build design. This is more often not, this is pretty much what you're going to have with your a lot of your kind of home projects, where they're going to build it and design it, or they're really just going to build it and they're going to do it the way that they've always done it. From anything like HVAC installs to like plumbing fixes to whatever. They're just going to build it and kind of troubleshoot through it. This usually is like a lot of existing conditions. We're not going to spend too much time here. This is just not the world that we live in, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning. This is something where you're just like, yeah, do it, figure it out, and then we'll figure out pricing. And, you may or may not have a contract or work order. But this is typically more in like the maintenance area of things where like you're just going to go do it and then figure out any problems as you go through it, and then kind of get the bill later for whatever the contractor ended up doing on the project, and dealing with it that way. The next one is IPD, and then this could be split into a fifth one with CMC. So IPD stands for Integrated Project Delivery. This is shared project risk and reward. So let's say that the project was for $10 million, and at the end of it, everything came in at 9.5 million. Well, you then have some shared cost savings between the owner and the general contractor, maybe some of the other contractors on the team as well. So that 500 grand that they came in under as a project team would get divvied up somehow amongst all the parties, so that the owner would get some money back, the general contractor would get some money, Maybe the other contractors get some money through that. So it's a shared kind of risk reward profile, if you will, on the project. More and more, especially large projects, are going this way to kind of share in the reward as well as the risk. So on the other side, if that project came in at 10.5 million, that the in that same kind of table breakdown, the general contractor would have risk, the owner would have risk, and the other contractors would have risk. So again, shared risk reward profile on those projects, and that's all baked into the contracts. So can be a little more lucrative, but at the same time is a little more risky in some regards to execute those projects. So this is where you want your kind of best project team on these types of projects. And for large scale projects, you're going to have your A team on it anyway. And by large scale, I mean, 100 plus million to $1 billion projects is where you're going to have kind of your top tier teams. The next is CMC, which is construction manager as contractor. Some might also call this a GMP, which is a guaranteed max price. So I've heard these terms used kind of interchangeably. Basically, what this end up happening is for CMC or GMP type projects is you do have a guaranteed max price. So, and this can be a hybrid of design, bid, build, and design build, where the general contractor at some point within the design, again, this architect has to be on board pretty early for this to get like space planning, scope and size of it, how many rooms, what's the room breakdown. Like there's a lot of architectural things that are required here to really help define the project, what the scope is, what any code items are, what ratings might be, all that kind of stuff. So in this, the architect, again, develops their plans. And then at some point in the project, I've seen this done at 50% DDs, where then the general contractor kind of buys it out, puts pricing to it. And if you're doing this with like a traditional design bid build type scenario, um, it's best if everybody is ultimately under the general contractor or whoever's going to buy this out. If you have a contract from the owner to the architects, as well as the owner has a contract to the general contractor who's going to put a GMP price to it, and then the design team makes changes because they're not under the general contractor, this means that any changes, have to go back through the owner, and then it's a scope difference to the GMP contract. So it does not really work that well when you have the design team separate from the uh, contractor. Like they need to be under each other, which then really goes to more of a design build. The GMP stuff, you're seeing still some of it, but it was more of a sales tactic for guys to say that, hey, you're going to get a guaranteed max price. We're not going to go over it. You're not going to have budget problems, right? It was a sales kind of tactic, if you will, for contractors to say that, hey, we're not going to do change orders and none of that stuff. When, in my experience, that was never really the case. Um, Again, most of the time, because on the projects that I was on, the design team was separate from the contractor, and then they didn't do the buyout at 100% construction documents. They did it earlier in the project, which then, of course, there's going to be changes because design is not completed at that time. So super important to like know where these milestones are, to know what type of project you're working on, and to really understand how this is all going to basically go down. So with that, in these delivery methods, you've really got to choose what's best for you. So from an owner standpoint, the reasons why somebody might go design build, and again, this is going to be just high level overviews. Um, and I'm going to take this from the owner standpoint, and then we'll go kind of through the rest of it. So from an owner in design build, the big reasons you go here is going to be typically schedule, sometimes price. Those are going to be the two driving factors. Schedule is typically why design build goes the way that it does, is those projects need to be up and moving and out of the ground pretty quickly. And usually on those projects, they're not going to be super complex, like office spaces or high-end corporate things or government projects, you're pretty much almost never going to have a government project go design build. For the most part, there are uh, again ones that do, but for most municipality projects, they're typically going to be design bid build for those projects. That's just again contractually typically how they go. They need their three bids. The only way to do that is from a design. And so, those owners typically in municipalities go design bid build since they need three bids. Um, the reason why an owner might go design bid build, usually again, these are going to be like higher ed projects. So like universities, those types of projects are going to go design bid build, even some bigger institution stuff. So in hospital work, they'll have their design team, and the design team is typically chosen. Their contractor is typically chosen. The general contractor is typically selected for that through like master service agreements, both the design team and the general contractor. And then they'll bid out the work again, typically through approved vendors, but they'll have some type of bid process through that and then proceed to build. So really the contractor's not going to execute the design work. And really, let me, I guess, put it in that delineation where you're going to have a full design team for kind of this bigger institutional stuff, hospitals, most government projects, big like corporate offices, things like that, schools. For sure, you're going to have a full design team. And rarely does that end up going through the contractors to execute it. Now, on the other side of that, you'll have for like industrial projects, a lot of TI type of stuff, maybe some small retail projects, potentially apartments, that kind of stuff. You're going to have more of a design build strategy. So smaller commercial, industrial projects. And then you're seeing some more integrated or design build type projects in other disciplines, but you're really not going to see it in the big institutional stuff. Like they'll have their design teams, they'll have that executed that follow their specific specifications for institutions, again, universities, colleges, as well as healthcare systems. So they'll always have a design team, and then some of that will be contractually tied to who they pick. But then design build, where the contractor is going to execute the design work, is going to be in again smaller commercial hotels, apartments, industrial projects. Like that's where you're going to see more design build. And then IPD, you're going to see that really in just massive projects. So big stadiums, huge infrastructure works, bridges to an extent, but big infrastructure type projects. Like again, any $1 billion+ stuff, you're going to see more IPD go on, right? Where any big towers, any of that kind of stuff that goes up, you're going to see some more and more IPD where the whole project team's on board, they share risks, they share reward, and that's just going to be a better delivery method for those types of big projects, really to try to keep it on schedule to kind of rein in the budget issues that they might have, and keep everybody on the same page. And then CMC and GMP, this was executed in schools for a long time. I think it still is. So there are some municipalities that are doing that and using a GMP type contract vehicle for these projects. Again, traditionally, you're still going to have a design team on it, and then you're going to have that bid out. And then they'll set a cap basically at some point in the project and say, hey, here's your price. Here's what we're going to bond around for like school projects, where they have bonds to deal with and go through all those types of things. So those are the big delivery methods. And again, the build design, which is really going to be more your like stuff at your house or maintenance type work in facilities where, hey, here's what we think we're going to do. There may or may not be a quote in it. There's really no design drawings. It's just go execute it. And maybe there's some documentation after. It's typically stuff you'd see around your house in residential settings, and then some maintenance work. So those are the big delivery methods in construction. And for all of this, you get to choose kind of what your niche is, what type of work you're going to go after, and how you're going to present that to the owner or to your clients. So, in my case, doing more and more design build type projects and working directly with the contractors, it's wonderful in that we can make manufacturer selections, we can do material selections, we can do a lot of that without kind of submittals and just our internal back and forth because we are as an engineer contracted to the uh, contractor, so they're going to make those material selections. We say yes or no based on what they typically use, and 95% of the time it's going to be just fine, right? There's small cases where that might not work out, or we need to use something different in that this or that application, and we can move forward from there. Basically, we don't waste a lot of time in paperwork. And then on the construction side of things, as an engineer, we don't waste a ton of time or have a lot of obligations during the construction phase, right? Submittals just went away. And then really a lot of things just get answered in questions from the contractor if they come into a circumstance that they really didn't plan on. So it's been good from an engineering standpoint, and we solve a lot of issues upfront and early with the contractor on board because they're looking at it. They've got their set of eyes on it. They are questioning, how things work kind of through the design process, and it really eliminates a lot of um, problems in the field. And we can just solve a lot of things before they ever get on site, and just helps a lot. Also, we're not fighting because we're on the same team, so we're not trying to defend our positions or anything like that. We're just trying to get it right. So I really like design build projects from that standpoint and being contracted to the contractor as an engineer. And then we're on their team, right? We're helping them through the project. And for bidding on new projects, we're also helping to give them, hey, this is what we think the service entrance size is going to be, right? This is what we would size it at for this building with the information that we have on hand. This is what the generator size would be. These are the, hey, can we use this type of cabling? Can we use MC cabling? Do we have to put it all in pipe? Right? Like, what are the things that we need to know through this so that they can put their pricing to it? And then that we as engineers can give them sizes, give them all that information to then put their numbers from, get it to their gear reps, and then have a better conversation around the entire thing. So, as far as all this goes, that's been a really great way for us to help contractors, help projects move forward. And again, it's becoming a bigger and bigger delivery method. I will dive into this with Matt on a future episode. Um, but thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. We'll again dive through more of these delivery methods, how they can help you, why you would be prone to go one way or the other. And then Matt and I will get some back and forth. But I want to put this episode out to again give you a big overview of the delivery methods, give you some time to think about it. And then on the next episode, we'll dive in and talk deeper. So thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time.